Okay, Richard. So I guess the pertinent question to begin with is, why do we actually need Estimate?
Great question, John. Let's go back a little bit, because I think people might be aware of the project in its sort of technical sense and the journey we've gone on. But I think sort of looking at trust as a form of currency, going back in time, especially with sort of real estate, back in sort of 6,000 to 8,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, you had like clay tablets, where you would record who owns a piece of land, how many sheep they've got, all that kind of stuff. And like you would be able to travel with that piece of clay, tablet, and you could port that ownership document. But it might be there's a mistake on it, of course, or it's broken, lost, stolen.
I was going to say it's very fragile, right? So I mean,
absolutely.
It must have broken into several pieces.
I wasn't around, just to clarify, I wasn't around then.
I thought you were talking from actual...
No, I'm just saying that, information has travelled from this very raw state to paper. So you obviously, land registry documents. And in the feudal years, you had literally lords that would go out, they would do a bit of, killing and whatever. They would, do some work for their king, and then they would get rewarded with a bit of land, and then there would be a document that says that's your land. So hence landlord. And then we've gone into the digital age. So now you've got documents that they state what someone has in terms of their ownership, but is it any safer than in some of these other methods? I would argue possibly not, because if you've got like a JPEG, an image of a cat, you can duplicate that JPEG and make two of them, and you don't really know which one's the original.
True.
So what we've done is we've utilized some technology that actually takes that data and creates what's called a token, which is now digitally unique. So
how unique are we talking? Fingerprint unique?
Fingerprint unique, yeah. You cannot duplicate that.
Okay.
So it's just making information robust and less liable, or less reliant, I should say, on trust.
Okay.
So that's why that's the journey we've been on. And there's an additional thing about real estate is very expensive, and it's been sort of reserved for the top 1%. So how do we then make it more available and affordable for everyone? So those are the real,
and this,
reasons.
Of course, is people not having to buy the property in its entirety. They can
or the land or anything in between. Yeah,
based on the token. So with regards to the token itself, we've had a bit of a jump from people with swords going straight up to the digital age. There was probably something in between in the history books. I don't know.
One or two things.
But we've got to that point now, as you say. Personalised, the token is there. How trusted kind of is that as a commodity at the moment now? I mean, we're still very much seeing banks and paper money. That's kind of gone away a bit. Everyone's doing everything on Apple Pay via their phone. Are we getting a little bit more used to the concept now that it's almost numbers as opposed to
I think
paper?
The numbers are growing, definitely. If you look at the stats in terms of how many people own crypto and understand a little bit of blockchain and stuff like that, it's definitely growing. It's still, I would say, quite niche. I mean, you've got President Trump, good old Trumpy. He's obviously helping that cause because the states are now pro crypto, and they're doing a lot of things to bring in things like stable coins. So stable coins are where like you've got this dollar, US dollar, digital version, but it's backed with actual dollars. So it's a lot easier for people to understand that kind of concept. And actually we're in the process of talking with a partner who is tokenizing GB pounds. So exactly the same concept.
Okay.
So sterling backed. Sterling is a bond, basically a promise of money by the government. I think they're called gilts. Actually, I'm not a financial expert.
Don't quote you on it. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's that sort of things start to make people more aware of what that technology can do and it's capable of. And the idea is it's faster, it's quicker, it's a better way of doing business because, if you're using, I don't know, PayPal or things like that, they're very expensive. The transactional costs are really expensive. But with all this new technology, the costs are next to nothing.
Okay, so with the question being why do we need Excavate, and obviously you explained very well there in terms of having that, being able to be trusted, if you like, within there. And you touched on the point that you can buy land or property, and it might be a small percentage, or it could be the whole thing. With that in mind, what problem is that solving? Is that solving a problem for first-time buyers, for argument's sake?
To the sort of end user, yeah, definitely. I mean,
because why Excavate? Why? What problem is that solving other than the trusted side?
Think of Excavate like sort of the Amazon Web Services, like this infrastructure layer where information is stored in a secure way, and then what we've done is built on top of that an application layer, like the Amazon marketplace.
Right.
We've built something called RealX Market, so that's where someone can go to that market, they can find a particular property that they're interested in investing in, and they can purchase a share of that property, which would then give them, if it's a rental property, give them a percentage of the rental yield over time.
Okay, yeah.
Now, if you think about someone, young person, wanting to save for their own house or invest in an asset, that means the gap between them being able to afford their own place over time, that gap's not getting bigger and bigger because they're investing in something that actually keeps up with that pace.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, so it really is helping solve a problem.
And not only that, but you think of someone renting a property, if they've got the option to buy into that property, that could be a good way of, again, getting on that ladder whilst still renting a property you like to live in. So it's solving a few different problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, Richard, so that all sounds really good. And ultimately, it's solving real world problems. So let's throw it out to the crew and see what's happening there. So Johnny, you are, what, 22?
Yep, 22.
Okay. Living at home?
Yep.
I'm not going to laugh at you. This is the world that we live in at the moment, right? So anything that you've just heard there, does that sound of interest to you that it might be able to help you?
Yeah, 100%. I think nowadays the property's been so expensive, even the hardest bit is trying to get onto that first step.
Yeah.
Just that entry level, just trying to make that first little bit so sort of fractionalise it this way. It just means there's little steps you can build to try and just get on it straight away.
Yeah. An actual opportunity rather than having to save up this huge deposit to be able to go ahead with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Sounds good. And yourself, what do you think about real estate? Well, what is real estate to you?
So real estate to me, being a little bit older, I've experienced the rental market. I look back at how much I spent when I did move out and rented, and it does make me feel like it's not wasted money, but it's money that I could have put towards a deposit on an actual property I own and get onto the ladder. So something like this sounds amazingly beneficial, especially with the cost of living going up. It's harder and harder for someone to save up enough for a deposit. So something like that would be absolutely fantastic.
Sounds great.
There you go. Not only are you solving problems, you're,
well, it's nice to hear.
The government should.
It's nice to hear from real people because at the end of the day, what we're trying to build is something that helps the everyday person. Which technically we know it can work, but fundamentally you don't know. We're not reinventing the wheel. We are, fractional ownership has been around for a long period of time. What we are doing is making the ability to transact and make decisions with a large number of people about a single asset trustless or less reliant on trust, that's not been done before.
No, it's very transparent and actually it's not as complicated as you would think once you actually break it down.
And when I don't talk technicals,
if someone else is talking about it, it's not as not as thing as it thinks. But no, you're solving real world problems. That's what it's all about. So well done. Okay, Richard, so it's great to hear, as we've just discussed, about how it's solving real world problems. But I know it's been quite a long journey for you thus far, to say the least. How far along are we with the journey at the moment from the end point?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a long journey, especially in terms of the industry that we're in. You know, it's light years in comparison to most other industries. We started 4-something years ago. I mean, I started a few years before that in terms of research. We've got an amazing team now. We've got sort of 8 core people in the development side and sort of product development side.
Yeah.
We've got the regulatory stuff in hand, and you know, we've been talking to regulators for about 18 months. I'll go on to that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but that's been quite a journey.
Can imagine.
We are, you know, technically very, very solid. We're just going through some audits at the moment. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but we're actually at the point now where we can see going live and delivering a product to a market. It's just literally within touching distance.
Have you managed to speak to any developers, for argument's sake? Have we got products potentially lined up, ready to go to market?
Yeah, so it's a bit like, you know, we've got software developers obviously developing the infrastructure, but we've got real estate developers obviously developing new build properties, which is going to be the first sort of product to market, as it were, in terms of fractionalization of this rental opportunities for.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a number of real estate developers that are really interested in listing some properties on the marketplace, which is great, and they've got like a diverse number of areas, you know, diverse number or types of properties as well. So I think there'll be good enough choice for people to sort of do their own research, come up with the kind of investment that suits them. But yeah, again, that's going to be happening over the coming weeks.
Watch this.
Yeah. We've sort of been very focused on this year.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, great. I've got another question for you.
Okay.
What's my favourite film?
Well, I think you look like a bit of a cowboy buff.
Wow.
I would say
Cowboy Operation.
I reckon it's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I don't know how you knew that. That's amazing. Clint Eastwood at his greatest. So yeah, it is. And therefore, my question to that is, what has been your good, bad, and ugly so far in this journey?
Wow. Yeah, let's start with good. So I think we've built this amazing bit of tech on top of another bit of tech. Amazing bit of tech. So that, for me, the sort of technical challenges that we had to face to do that were immense. We had loads of support from a huge number of people, but the core team that got over those hurdles, that for me was like a real sort of proud dad moment, you know. And we've just carried on. We've built our understanding of the system, built into all of these different scenarios that could be happening over time. That makes it a very complex system below the sort of below the water, but from a customer-facing perspective, and this mobile application that we've developed as well, which is incredible. It's a really simple thing. If you can like manage any app, you can manage the RealX market app. So it's not like we're throwing some like ridiculous amount of technology at people, expecting them to learn all this stuff.
No,
we're going to hand. You know, the system is user friendly. All it does is give people the opportunity to review various different kinds of properties, see what they're interested in, and make that decision, whatever suits their sort of longer term plans.
Exciting times ahead for sure.
Thank you.
Richard, this must have, and indeed I'm sure still is, taking an awful lot of your time, and it must be taking an awful lot of your finances as well in order to get something like this off the ground. So just talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so in terms of time, it's been a very, very intensive time over the last 4 years, but especially in the last 2, trying to juggle from a technical team perspective, regulatory compliance team, and a lot of look at the future, have one eye on the future and also being in the now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been some long weeks, lot of working the weekends.
Deadlines.
But if you love something, you tend to, you don't think about the time. I do have a family, so I have tried to get the balance right, but it's difficult. But yeah, it's been a challenge. But we've got enough people that everyone's doing their bit and making each milestone a little bit closer, and then each big target that we've made, we've tried to break it down into little steps, and that makes it easier to deal with.
And how has the, I suppose, sector, for want of a better word, responded? Have they been good in terms of helping with raises? Or anything?
I mean, to be honest, it's been a real tough time in terms of finances globally. It's been a difficult time. The real estate industry in the UK and other parts of the world has been, in a pretty tough place for the last few years.
Yeah.
But we've managed things through funding through grants. We've won some software competitions, which has been amazing.
Wow.
We did an equity raise beginning of the year, so we sold some shares in the holding company, and we did a token pre-sale.
Yep.
So that brought some new investors through and helped build the community up, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying.
Greater awareness.
Yeah.
Perfect. So one of the things that's always kind of strikes me a little bit with this whole thing, because it sounds fantastic, I've always really wondered how it's controlled. And by that, I kind of mean, if you look at the governance of the thing and you're thinking that potentially within one property, this person's buying 5%, this person's buying 15%, maybe the person that's got the highest amount would like to sell the property, maybe the other one would prefer it because they're looking at a rental scheme. Must be a nightmare.
In the real world, yes, because it relies on trust. You either know the other parties, other people involved, or you have maybe a centralized entity, a company that sort of is a third party that brings these people together and sort of mitigates these risks. But what we've done is we've spent a lot of time and energy building this custom code, which takes the identity of people, so checks those identities without infringing on their privacy rights. And then it allows those people to create an environment that they can make decisions around the control and all of the key decisions around governance of that particular property type. So imagine the letting agent needs to get an approval for a new boiler.
Yes.
So these are new build properties. So initially, everything's going to be
anything like that.
Well, there shouldn't be. Or they're going to be guaranteed. There'll be some kind of warranty, etc. But there might be a decision that needs to be made around, a new tap. So if that tap is over a certain price range, then the letting agent will approach all of the parties within the app and say, we've got 3 quotes. Quote 1 is this, quote 2 is that, quote 3 is that. Are you happy? We recommend quote 2. Are you happy with that decision? And they will vote. So they will review all the information and they will make a vote, and it will be a majority decision will rule.
Is it one vote per person that's in there, or if I have a higher stake as a percentage, do I get more votes?
Great question. So if you've got higher stake, so a higher number of tokens, you have a weighted decision. So your decision weight is higher than someone else.
As you would expect it should be.
Well, it should be, because you've got more skin in the game. So.
Indeed. More to win, more to lose, as it were. Okay, all right, that gives some clarity. So I think I certainly feel a bit more comfortable with how that works now. I did always wonder how it worked.
One of the key, there is this sort of secondary market where token holders can list their token, and people that have an interest in that secondary market, they would then register that interest, and there would be this sort of negotiation of the token asset price. So it's very much sort of repeating what you would do in real life, but breaking it down into fractions.
Just going off a little bit, if the property in question, initially people went in to buy it within their percentages for it to be sold at whatever date, but then someone that had like a majority share in it, or a few people came together and said, actually, we think this would be now better off to be a rental property. Would you be able to switch that from sale to rental, or from rental to sale, if everybody voted accordingly?
Absolutely. So the way in which the governance control works is they are in control of the whole decision-making process. So if they decide as a collective to sell the whole property, they vote, someone proposes it, they vote, and if that decision is carried, the whole number of tokens get listed on the marketplace,
Yeah.
and someone can buy all of those tokens and then take it off the marketplace.
Fantastic. Richard, you're probably somewhere of a similar age to me. Do you remember Rising Damp? Remember Rigsby?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't exactly the greatest of landlords, if we could put it that way, and certainly not in today's viewing of how it would come across. So, I guess the question on that is, what if you end up with a terrible landlord? So I've gone in, I've bought myself 10% stake, and I've got Rigsby running the rental. I really don't want him there. What do we do?
So yeah, I mean that sort of scenario, we've built the system to avoid that happening. What we want is a situation where everyone involved within the decision-making process, everyone who's providing a service, everyone who's adding value, is actually helping the system avoid those kinds of scenarios. So what we do is the landlord as such is the token holders, they're making the decisions, but the property manager is like a letting agent. So the relationship between the renter and the letting agent is direct, but through you've got this contractual obligation between you as a token holder, landlord, with the renter as well. So it's quite a complex thing. So the way we've got round there being this sort of rogue letting agent or property manager is that they can be voted out by the token holder. So if they're not doing what they should be doing, and the renter's complaining, or things aren't being repaired as quickly as they should be, or maybe the letting agent's trying to charge twice for the same thing, they can vote that letting agent out and then voting a new letting agent. So it gives that skin in the game. There's potential for loss. So it's not just reputational loss. They can actually lose the contract.
So you've got way more control, really.
Absolutely.
Because the amount of landlords out there with unfortunately, the younger generation at the moment that can't afford to buy it, they go into rental, they've got Rising Damp up the wall, the tap doesn't work for a number of weeks, they can't heat their jacuzzi, whatever it may be. They're actually in control here, aren't they, to be able to do that?
I've got a tin and beans and a bath. I don't have a jacuzzi. But absolutely. I think the point is that what we're trying to create, this sort of network effect, is of people doing things the right way. And there's a consequence. They're rewarded if they are do things the right way. And everyone's moving in the right direction in terms of, we want there to be value generated, but not abuse of that value. So it's not making a profit at all costs.
All right. So from rogue landlord, if you like, to let's say problematic tenant. So we've got someone that goes in, playing their music till 3 o'clock in the morning, throwing wild parties. You're trying to read a good book downstairs, right? And it's an issue. Is that the landlord's situation to just sort out, or again from the voting perspective, could it be if this issue isn't, or if this tenant isn't controlled in the right manner, we would then have to vote as to whether you're the right landlord to deal with this situation?
No, so the landlords, as in the token holders, are being serviced by the letting agent or property manager.
Right.
So you're paying that service provider to do a service which is look after that renter.
Yeah.
So if they manage that renter and for whatever reason there's a problem, they need to communicate with that renter and resolve it. If they can't, then you look to get a new tenant, because if they might have broken their tenancy agreement, etc. The other scenario is, what if they don't pay? So that is another option. Currently there is insurance, and that would go through from the letting agent. They would ask the token holders to get that insurance, and that
Yeah.
is voluntary currently, but that will be going to compulsory in the UK soon. But that arrangement is through the letting agent.
Okay.
But
But
that would
otherwise,
protect.
it's standard practice with what you would expect going through
Yeah,
an estate agents, for example, with the lettings.
Yeah,
department.
absolutely,
It's got all
yeah.
of those remits.
But all those kinds of controls and support and mitigation of risk is all built in as part of that process.
Great. So you really are safe.
As safe as you can be.
Safe as houses.
Safe as houses. Good stuff.
So, Richard, a two-part question, if you'll forgive me, on this one. So the first section is, I'd like to understand what the property types are which are available. Are we only talking new build here, or are we talking that there might be a property available for rental or purchase, which is someone's old run-down cottage and it's got a slightly leaning wall and a damp
windmill.
patch and so something unique, let's put it that way, with its own challenges.
Yeah.
And I guess the kind of second part to that is then, once you have identified the property type and what you want to go ahead with, is who's in control of that market value? Because to me, it feels like there could be an area there for it to be either overinflated or undervalued if it's certainly fitted a narrative, for a group of
Yeah, no,
individuals.
two good questions. So hitting the first, we are looking to launch with new build only because the verifiability of that property is much, much easier. So you've in the UK and pretty much all around the world, you've got planning applications and building sign-off. So the real estate developer will enter the details in of that particular property, but have to input the planning code, the planning status, which will then be verified and checked using an API with a local authority. And the other thing is the building sign-off. So each building, when it's signed off, is an insurance company would create an insurance certificate to make sure that building is finished to the standard it says it was. So that's another point of verification.
Okay.
And then back to your second point. So the real estate developer will put in a price that they feel that property is worth, and they consult with local real estate agents to get that price, as well as a sort of rental yield.
As any new homes developer would do, they would come to market with a price which may find its level depending on interest.
But obviously, some are, let's say, more truthful than others. So what we've done is there's a property data, an independent property data check, which says a property of 2 bedrooms, 150 feet in size, 1 bathroom, and various other different attributes of that type of property will be worth 300,000 to 320,
Right.
and the developer's saying it's worth 310. So, and you'll see that when you peruse the real estate or the RealX market, we should say, all of that information is clearly displayed on that property, so you can make that informed decision. But also the rental yield. The developer might say you'll get 1750 back, but obviously that might be some movement on that. And how much rental demand is there in that area? So again, there'll be a double check of that using independent property data. But the properties that the developers that we're talking to are situated are main transport links. So they're sort of commuter belt into London. So that's what we're trying to make these more investor-led type real estate rather than build 3,000 properties in the middle of nowhere and then they fractionalise and
So I'm guessing that if you went to a property development, which let's say it had only been launched for 6 months, for example, it might have had 2 or 3 that have sold already, and therefore you would already know what the price point effectively was because it's already there in market, so it's kind of quite clear.
I mean, developers, what they'll do is they'll build maybe 9-block apartment and they'll sell half of those to a local market quite easily, relatively easy. But then it's like that second half is a little bit more challenging. So having the ability to break it down into fractions, open it out to an international investor market is really attractive from a developer's point of view. But we want to not necessarily control which developers list on the properties, but we want the right kind of developers, the right kind of properties, because it's all about the investors at the end. If the investors are happy with their investment and have that liquidity to be able to sort of buy and sell these tokens over time, then everything else falls into place.
So more common practice, I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be that if it's a development of, for argument's sake, pick a number, 50 apartments, within the future, it could very easily look something like 25% have been sold in the traditional way, and 25 of the other apartments are actually all being run through Excavate or owned through Excavate.
So it's never owned through Excavate. So the way it works is that
through the token holders which are using the platform.
Yeah, but it's very, very important to point out that the real estate developer lists or details all the intricacies about that particular property. That's all then tokenized, and the tokens are then bought or reserved initially by all the investors. It's not until the last token is sold that then what's called an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle. Right. This is a legal entity, limited liability partnership. So each token holder has limited liability partnership legal rights over that property. So the SPV always is the owner of that property unless they sell out the whole property.
Sure.
So once that SPV is created, that is the legal entity that makes all the decisions. It's just the token holders vote on those decisions.
Understand. Okay, understand. Yeah, good. Richard, we've spoken obviously in length now with regards to Excavate. There's a lot going on, and I guess regulation of all of those moving parts is something which must be high on your agenda. So what do those regulations look like? And then also from that, do they differ at all if you're looking from being local, whether it may be being regional based, or even say on a global scale?
Yeah, so I think we've spent a lot of time sort of dividing up or creating boundaries between what is regulated and what is not. And I think if you look at things from an infrastructure perspective, so Excavate essentially is just software. It's just run on lots of different computers all around the world to make it robust and and sort of so it's not centralized like Amazon being in charge of it. So that's not regulated.
Right.
But then the market, RealX market, where you're tokenizing a real estate asset, it suddenly becomes a security. So that process of bringing together the real estate developer and the investor to have an exchange of money or of crypto to the property tokens, that is regulated, and there's two permissions in the UK. The regulators in the UK, we need two permissions. So the entity that we have registered is a limited company called H&W Investments Limited. They are going for, we've applied for two permissions. One is arranging deals, so that's bringing together the real estate developer and the investors. And the other one is a crypto asset exchange register. So you need the ability to have those two covered to operate in any particular region, especially in the UK.
Okay.
The way the system works is that to scale this out into not only different areas in the UK, but other areas globally, is that there could be more than one regional operator. So imagine H&W is the regional operator for the UK initially, but regions are typically countries, areas are typically counties, and then locations are like towns and cities. You could regulate it down to the areas and cities, but initially to get this off the ground, just make it easier. So UK is or England is one region, and other parts of the UK could be other regions as well, because they do have little nuances in Scotland. Property law is different.
Very much so.
And we are actually talking to different global regions. So we had a conversation with people in Australia, Dubai, Asia. So there's lots of people out there that are really excited about the idea of this kind of software and platform, but don't necessarily have the technical knowledge to be able to deliver something themselves. So that they would be interested in becoming regional operators. And this is where it becomes more decentralized, and I get more excited about it because it means it's suddenly a global system. everyone's got skin in the game. Everyone's got
Yeah.
their own like regional expertise, but making sure that it's regulatory compliant in the regions that it's in.
Fantastic. So when you said today London, tomorrow Europe, and then the world, you weren't kidding, were you?
Well, you've got to take things one step at a time, but we're not doing this because we want to stay in the Hertfordshire area or, in England and UK. We want to do this because in an abstract form, this can be done anywhere, but not just that. It can be golf courses, it can be nightclubs, it can be restaurants, it can be any type of real estate, any type of property. But then you could take it to the other extreme. You could buy a piece of land and build your own house. Now imagine like you're in charge of that, but maybe you want to build 3 or 4 houses. So you might buy a piece of land, 3 or 4 of you, and you would build your own houses. That whole process is a nightmare at the moment. It's all like very, opaque. And there's lots of, people doing things in the background. We want to make that transparent and available to anyone. And also put things back into the community. So imagine a percentage of the fees over time can go in this pot, and people who live in an area could vote to spend that on, helping the community with a homeless shelter or cleaning up a river or,
anything from that basis.
I just think, it's got the possibility of going lots of different areas and being a value add for lots of different communities.
No, it's amazing. So, I mean, obviously created to solve real world problems, and they actually are real world problems on a global scale. As you say, there might be slight nuances in laws and changes and governance, but actually, as a problem, it's a global problem. So there it is to solve it.